Good Friday afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. I am your host, Mr. Neil LaFortune. Excited to be here, excited to talk to this gentleman. Hey, Ian, how are you? I want to give a shout out here to a couple of people that were working hard, doing some tech work. If I were a young teen, I would know how this works with Instagram. Anyways, my good friend Ian Brown was working very hard to get some of the promo videos together, and he put together some great ones, and we just didn't get it formatted correctly for Instagram. Oh, hey, sister, there we go. And also want to thank my friend Russ Fairley for pitching in as well. But big thanks to my guest today for kind of actually coming through in the clutch and really getting things together. So without further ado, I am very excited and happy to have this gentleman on with me today as my guest. He's been a friend for maybe close to 20 years, something like that. I remember seeing him play down at the Orbit Room, filling in for episode number one's guest, Mr. Paul DeLong. He was filling in for the first set until Paul could get there. And I'm watching my guest today. He's playing, and I'm standing right beside him, and it's sounding ridiculous. And he yells over in his raspy voice, "Hey Neil, can you turn those snare wires off?" The snare drum saying, "But they're bugging me." Anyways, this fellow, good friend of mine, has played with Katie Lang, Leonard Cohen, Matt Dusk, The Guess Who, High Leg Maneuver, Amanda Marshall, Sass Jordan, Anne Murray, Randy Brecker, Kelly Lee Evans, Long John Baldry, Manteca, and of course Paul Schaefer, the one, the only, Mr. Charlie Cooley. And I am going to see if I can bring him on. Can you request Charlie to be a... Ooh, yeah, here we go. I'm going to see. All the way from Orangeville, Ontario, I believe. There he is!
Hey,
Hey, it's about the only thing that worked well, like the first time we did it, right?
let me get my headphones.
Get your headphones. Very good. I've got the lovely Gretsch jacket on here. And by the way, I definitely wanted to let everybody know where to get their collectibles and wearables, Gretsch stuff at gretschgear.com. Go there. It is licensed. Anywhere else, your stuff is not going to be licensed. And anyway, so Mr.
Yo.
Coming all the way from Orangeville, Ontario.
Hey, everybody.
How's
Hey,
it
Neil.
going? Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you, brother.
Nice to see you. Yeah, looking good, man. Do you ever age? Look at you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, since I asked a week ago if you wanted to be on the program here, you're like, oh. Anyway.
Yeah. I was right.
This is going to be fun. It's a thrill for me. I remember meeting you probably at Drummer's Choice years ago. And but even before then, and I told you this story over the phone, my brother said, when I first started playing drums, we started playing out in the mid-'80s. And he said, because my time was terrible and everything wasn't good. He goes, you really got to listen to this band called Backstreet and this drummer named Charlie Cooley. I go, oh, what's good about him? He goes, he has really good time. And he's got a great feel. You should listen to him. It's like, I think he wrote it down because, and anyway, so I've heard of you then, and of course had got to know you a little bit, and then had seen you play at the Orbit Room with that little story that I told.
Sure.
And of course, wearing out that Manteca live recording that you guys did.
The cassette. You had the cassette.
I still have the cassette, and it is in the drum room here. I wore it out, man, and now I've got it all on my Apple Music, and I listen to it. Actually, I do have a cassette player, so I should just pop it on there. Anyway, welcome,
Beautiful.
and I will let
Thank
you
you.
talk. I told you this too. So today's the premise of today and all of these interviews is that we talk Gretsch drums, and we feature the Gretsch artists, such as yourself. But I wanted to ask you, when did things begin for you musically?
Well, before we get there, let me just say thank you for having me on today. It is truly an honor to represent the Gretsch brand, of course, and it's just such amazing gear. And yeah, it's a real treat to be here and make a racket and
Yep.
say hello. Things began for me. I grew up in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And we had a great city schools music program there, run by a guy named Chalmers Doan. And Chalmers had curated lots of amazing teachers. And I started in grade 6 with a guy named Craig Reiner, who was one of the percussionists with the Atlantic Symphony Orchestra, what was called the Atlantic Symphony Orchestra then. And having Craig as a teacher, as an initial teacher, was amazing because he taught us, really great technique, how to hold the drumsticks, really, some really good fundamentals, and how to read music and these sorts of things. It was a tremendous start with him. And we used to go to Sir Charles Tupper School at 7 in the morning from 7 till 8 and do our lessons. Yeah, they were really early lessons. Maybe it was 8 till 9. Anyway, it felt very early. We had to get up really early. And my dad, bless him, he drove me to these lessons every morning, and he got up and helped me. And so those were some of the beginnings. I mean, the City Schools music program in Halifax, like I said, was just tremendous. They gave everyone an opportunity. The percussionists started in grade 6 because I think physically, just to hold on to the drumsticks at that point was that's when they suggested we start. So
wow. And so you were learning to read snare pieces or things. What did you actually learn?
Yeah, well, as things went on, I think we were with Craig maybe 2 or 3 years, into our junior high school years, and we worked on the Podemsky book, and which was a really great book. And learning how to just note values and how to read music and different rhythms and technique, snare drum technique and how to hold the sticks and this sorts of thing. And it's just a tremendous.
Were you doing traditional grip or did you play matched?
I played match grip actually, and Craig was a big proponent of match grip. We played both styles, but I do play traditional grip when I'm playing jazz and stuff with brushes and that. So
right, yep,
yeah,
it looks right when you're playing jazz, right?
It feels right, looks right. Yeah.
And it does look really cool. So, what happened next? What did you do? Music and drum set throughout all of your school years?
Yes. In this program, in the city schools music program, they had different ensembles, and they had like a really smoking jazz band. They had a really wonderful symphony orchestra. And they also, because Chalmers Doan, who was the head of the program, he taught kids on ukulele how to sing and play music on ukuleles. He had thousands and thousands of kids playing uke. And then he had different ensembles. And he had sort of an ensemble that was a showpiece, like a showcase ensemble, some of the more advanced players. And I got to be in the rhythm section for that, which was really great because I learned how to play very quietly. You know how you can feather the bass drum, and Chalmers Doan showed me what that technique was. To feather the bass drum, it gives you a really good foundation. And for ukuleles, if you're playing with ukes and choirs, you can't be too loud. So I learned to play very quietly and effectively at a young age. And so I stayed with the uke groups, for years and years, and then also in the symphony under the direction of Alex Tilley, who was the symphony guy. And and there was choirs. I mean, it was a really very rich environment to be in music.
Wow. And so was that all the way through high school?
It went right through to grade 12, yes.
And so what kind of, besides the uke, did you do any other, did you do any of the classical things? Did you play mallets? Did you play timpani or anything like that?
More on the timpani side. Like I wasn't like a mallet player so much. I stayed mostly to the snare drum set, played bass drum and cymbals and all this sorts of thing, and some timpani as well. But there were players in the orchestra that all kind of specialized in their own area, which was really cool. And tons and tons of repertoire we learned, and we traveled a lot actually. That was sort of part of the beginnings as well, as traveling with some of the youth groups of the orchestra coming up to Ontario and different places. That was a really great experience, actually.
So it prepared you for exactly the things that you did as a professional musician. You toured, you played a lot, and you had to play quietly. I never learned how to play quietly until the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so, and because everything was pretty loud. So what happened after high school? What did you do?
Well, during high school, I was playing in a couple of bands. Like, I was in an R&B kind of funk rock band. We played all kinds of different styles. It was a band called Track, and it was a horn band. We used to do a lot of the Chicago and the Tower of Power and these sorts of things. It was a wonderful experience, and there were some really great drummers that came before me in that band. There was one guy in particular whose name is David James, who was sort of my mentor in Halifax.
Right.
And he also taught in the city schools program for a little while as well. So, so this band Track played, we played all kinds of dances and, receptions and, all sorts of things like that. And I played in another group called Canada's Brass, and we did a lot of dances and receptions and that sort of thing. So I had some really good experience early on through high school. And towards the end of high school, I stayed around Halifax for about a year. I had auditioned to come to Humber College in Toronto.
Yeah.
I did my audition at Acadia University during one of the jazz camps in the summer, and I did the audition, and then they told me that I had gotten into Humber, and I moved to Toronto that summer, or at the end of that summer.